Ian Heaney, who is the founder of Quantum Leap Solutions. Good afternoon, Ian. How does this find you?
Very well, Nick. How are you?
Not too bad at all. We should stress, obviously, the very fact we're not showing the Dante, the live 2020, the real version, is because of what's going on globally at the moment. So I should just check that everything's been well with you and yours in this difficult period.
Yeah, everything's fine, Nick. I have to say that you're breaking up a lot on the telephone line.
Well, hopefully we can fix that. Hopefully you're with us. You are obviously the founder of Quantum Leap Solutions, who are bringing us this service today, the virtual Dante of 2020. But just a bit about you, your background. You were with the Racing Post for many years, indeed led the team that developed the database back in 1987. So it's a love of the product, but also it's a love of horse racing for you, isn't it?
Yeah, so I suppose I go back a long way. So my mum ran betting shops. Both my parents were passionate about racing. All three of my four grandparents were punters, so yeah, so it's absolutely in the blood.
Right, there is obviously, virtual racing has been a product for quite some time, but it's intriguing, and I mentioned to Chris earlier the barroom chat, the pub chat, as it were, comparing different generations. Is that something that made you want to go down the route that you've done and develop the product that you have, Ian?
Yeah, I suppose it's just inquisitiveness, isn't it, really? I mean, I started rating horses probably, I think when I was about 8 years old. I remember Ginevra winning the Oaks and me having a small bet on that through my parents. And I think you start at that point, you have a favourite horse, and then you want to see how your favourite horse compares with all the other great horses. And, yeah, so that's probably what started me off, and I suppose that's lived with me ever since, wanting to know how those great horses of my youth compare with the great horses of today. And it's a frequent argument people have, isn't it? You know, are today's horses much, is an able better than Alley France and Dahlia and Time Charter and horses like this? You know, that's a frequent pub argument. So it's interesting to try to solve it, really.
So when did it become, the idea, the theory was there, you had what you wanted to do, but when did it become a reality for you?
Oh, I suppose about 5 years ago, really. So I left the Racing Post 2013, 2014, of my own choice, just because, I've sort of pretty much been there, seen it and done it with the Post. I've been there for 26, 27 years, I think, and as you say, led the team that created the database and the website and then the mobile app and all that sort of thing. So, and I wanted to pursue my own objectives, really. So I probably completed the first build of this type of product, I think 2013, 2014. I think, ironically, we ran for Coral, we ran a virtual Grand National way back in 2014, I think. So it's been around ever since then, and it's come back into the forefront just recently, primarily because of of COVID-19 and the lack of betting opportunities that people have got.
So we're going to enjoy, in a few minutes' time, the virtual Dante, which has brought together 10 winners of the race over the last 3 decades. In a nutshell, because I'm sure we could be here all afternoon working out exactly how this works, but in a nutshell, how does it work? How have you created this product that we're going to enjoy later?
Well, you've asked me the impossible question to put it into a nutshell, obviously, because it's very, very complex behind the scenes. But in essence, the starting point is a computerised handicap. So I have a database of all, most races going back to 2010, but the pattern races right back to the beginning of the pattern in 71, and then the big races prior to that. So the starting point is an entirely computerised handicap, which operates on the same principles as the official handicappers or Time for More, the Racing Post ratings. Layered on top of that are adjustments for going and distance preferences for the horses based on their historic form. Which again are computerised algorithms, but they follow the same logic that someone like Chris would have used to work out whether a horse is suited by the ground or not, and made his own adjustments. And then there are adjustments for going in trainer. So the propensity of horses running to form when ridden by a top jockey like Corson or Piggott or Hughes or Dettori, and similarly the same sort of effect for trainers. And then overlaid on all of that is a sort of unpredictability, a value which really looks at the probability of horses running above and below form, given the type of horse that they are and the point at which they are in their career. So if we take this race to Dante, you've got a bunch of horses who are slightly unexposed 3-year-olds of a very high class. So we will have a probability distribution for those horses, which indicates the likelihood of them running, say, a pound better than the form that they've shown, or 2 or 3 or 4 pounds, and conversely, a pound below, or 2 or 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever it is below that. So so all of those things come together to give you an adjusted merit rating for the horses going into the race.
So that's the thing. The unpredictability was the word that stood out for me there, because I suppose anyone could look back and go, oh, the rating of that such and such year was better than that, but there will be an element of unpredictability, as you said. With these horses, we talked about Golden Horn, for example. He'd won a field and he needed to be supplemented for the Derby thereafter. Is everything we're going to see today and the way they race based on everything going into their Dante, or will there still be a retrospective element, i.e. taking into account Roaring Lion won 4 Group 1s, taking into account Saki won the Arc a year or 2 later, and Golden Horn, of course, dominated everything? Is it all before, or is there a bit of a blend after as well when profiling the horses?
No, you're quite right, Nick. So there's a degree of hindsight, obviously. I mean, the beauty of hindsight gives us 20/20 vision, doesn't it? So. But the hindsight is tailored, so clearly what the algorithms try to do is they try to say what was Golden Horn capable of on Dante Day had he been at his best, what was Motivator capable of on that day. And if you take a horse like Saki, it's stretching credibility to believe that Saki could have run to the level he ran to in the Arc had he needed to on Dante Day, because he just didn't run to that level at all during his whole 3-year-old career. So the algorithms, they won't pick up the fact that I think our numbers have got Saki somewhere near a 130, perhaps a 129 or something like that when he won the Arc. They wouldn't pick that up. I mean, I think our numbers will have him something like 124, I think, when he ran second in the Derby. So they'd look forward as far as the Derby. They might look forward a little bit further than that, but they wouldn't be picking up a performance that a horse produced in the October of its 4-year-old career, or the fact that possibly even Roaring Lion's back end perform wouldn't be picked up.
Okay, right. I will leave you temporarily. I'll just pass you on to Chris Dixon, who's alongside me for the course of this 1-hour show as we build up to the virtual Dante. I know he's got a question or two he'd like to ask you, Ian.
Excellent. Hi, Chris.
Yeah, hi, and I think that's answered. That's answered a lot of the questions, actually, and it's an interesting way that you've gone about finding it. So, obviously, as you said there, something like Saki's subsequent exploits aren't taken into consideration, and in a sense, that's an interesting thing to look about in its own right, because horses such as Golden Horn and Authorised didn't go on and race at 4, did they? So if they had have done, would they have got even better? So this is a race that you've sort of managed to produce this afternoon that is based on what they would have been capable of in the front half of their 3-year-old career, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's exactly right. So I think, if you sat down and you thought about it logically and you said, well, look, within all reasonable doubt, what do we think that horse could have produced on Dante Day? That's really what you're looking at, and I think there'd be quite significant doubt that Saki was capable of producing on Dante Day what he produced in the Arc. It was a different trip for a start, but obviously it was much later in his career. Golden Horn, Authorised, produced very good performances in the Dante in their own right, but also produced very good Derby winning performances. Motivator produced a very good Derby winning performance, improved significantly on his Dante form, but he was probably capable on Dante Day of running the same sort of races he ran in the Derby had he needed to.
Ian, I'll just ask from a sort of layman's perspective, when you've got all the data collated as you do, and it goes back an awful long way, and the software is there for you to bring this to life, and it will be on the virtual Newsmire at York, how long is the process to make the virtual Dante come to life?
It's unbelievably quick. So the way the software works is we actually generate 1,000 versions of the race. So it goes through the process of selecting the unpredictability part of the merit rating that I talked about. It goes through the process of selecting that 1,000 times from what is effectively a weighted sample. So that weighted sample, for a high-class horse, will have a very large number of values in it which are close to 0. In other words, the horse is exposed, it's very high class, and it tends to be extremely consistent. So So this is something that would happen with a horse like Frankel, for example. I mean, Frankel ran pretty much to the same level of form for, well, I don't know, 3/4 of his races probably. So it makes no sense to have Frankel running miles off, because he very, very rarely did. But what the programme does is it selects from that sample of unpredictability 1,000 times and creates 1,000 different versions of the race. And what you've got is one of those 1,000 versions. Now, amongst all of those 1,000 versions, there will be a high number of those versions will be run, for example, by Golden Horn, authorised motivator. A lesser number will be run, for example, by horses like Environment Friend in Carlton House. But there will be a small number of those 1,000 variants that have been won by the outsiders, because that's what happens in horse racing. You do get that. You do get outsiders winning because everything else is run below form. So that is a possibility. When you run this version and you broadcast it, it may come up with an outsider winning the race, because the algorithm has happened to have selected values for the leading candidates to show that they've run below form on the day.
Last question from me, because I know people are going to be screaming saying get this race on and looking forward to seeing it. But the unpredictability element, the jockeys that you got in the list here, Carson, Fallon, Murta, Piggott, Moore, Dettori, Murphy, they're not jockeys we associate with getting things wrong too often, but is that factored in as well? Is there a bit of human error? Is there a bit of jockey error in each of the races that you produce?
Yeah, so that's a possibility. The process that actually creates the animation, the way the animation is created is we actually create a stride speed and a position for each horse off the rail, if you like. It's a lane, really, if you like, for each horse during the course of the race. So there'll be a formation for horses that have got a propensity to lead or be midfield or be in rear for this particular race, and it'll say, okay, well, that's likely to create this sort of formation. And the sort of variables associated with the formation and the draw and the likelihood of horses being near the front will decide what shape the race takes up. And then there's a whole host of software that every single stride the jockey is looking at the positions of the other horses in front of him and knowing whether he's going quicker or slower than them and closing on them or not. And those algorithms try to go through the same process that a jockey would go through when he decides to switch outside or go for a run up the inside. And they have the same issues that jockeys have if they make a decision to go up the inside, and then the horses that are leading start to come back on top of them. They will have the same issue and they'll run into trouble, yeah.
Ian, super stuff. I know Chris has got one last question and then we'll get on with the action.
Hello?
Yeah, Ian, rather than just for this particular animation that we're about to watch, is this something that these algorithms, are this something that you use as a punter? Because you could, I presume, put all those same algorithms and things that you've got and rating reliability and things like that into the computer for a handicap that's run in 3 weeks' time, should we be getting one, knowing what the horses have done and things like that, and try to get a result. Is that something? Do you use it for that?
Yeah, so we can do that. So one of the applications of this actually is going to be looking at simulating real racing. So if we do have an extended period a further extended period, and I hope we don't, where there's no racing, then we'll look at the possible application of simulating the races that may have taken place. Of course, as you will know, for those races we don't have the benefit of hindsight. So we don't know how Motivator went on and ran in the Derby. We don't know how Golden Horn went on and ran in the Derby. We don't know that Saki went on and ran 7 to 10 pounds better or something like that than he did in the Dante later in his career. So obviously, it's like any selection tool or tipster or anything like that. It's limited by the data that it's got available to it.
Ian, thank you very much indeed for that expansive and extensive run-through of how your product works. We're looking forward to seeing it in action in just a moment or two's time. Thank you for your time, Ian.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.